it is.
And we're live.
There we are.
Are we?
Maybe.
Should pop up.
I think after trying
If we're
to do-
live now. Oh, there it is. Perfect. Now we're in. How good?
Are we sure?
Yeah, I think so.
For 2
Rightio.
years we think we get it right.
We're obviously underprepared, which is why we're 3 minutes late. So we have a piece of paper that we're going to go through. So if you saw the last live stream, it was about gear and whatnot. This one's going to be R&D focused. So we're going to go through some R&D questions as well that we have for an upcoming blog and just go through them ourselves. But at any time, if you have any question about R&D here at Aerosports, what we're working on, what we should be working on, anything you want to know, feel free to pop a comment down there and we will answer it pretty much straight away. So, maybe a little bit of background. I've been working for Aerosports for about 6 years, and I've been test jumping that whole time. I've worked on the Sapphire 3 project, what came after Sapphire 3? Crossfire 3? And then there was the JFX2, or was the layer? We just did a little layer reboot, which basically just chucked some mini ribs in it and just let you do whatever colours you wanted with it. The JFX2, the Kraken, the Slayer, and the never-ending Anna project. And we're kind of in and out and dabbling with the Petra 2 project as well. So yeah, so I've been jumping as a testies for the last 5-6 years.
Yeah, I was going to say, I actually just saw a notification on Facebook this morning that I've been at Aerosports for 5 years today.
Oh, there you go. Yeah.
But yeah, I started out more in the production team, doing quality control for the most part. So that was kind of the first kind of year. And then on that, there was definitely opportunities to help out doing some test jumping. So as and when I was needed, I'd definitely jump on that chance, head out to the drop zone, and just kind of built on from there. And then I guess just from being involved so much in production, actually having somebody that's kind of helping out the design team and production team to build the things, actually having it's good to have that set of eyes on the Canopies, so just kind of build on from there.
It's nice to have both perspectives, because obviously I come from a swooping background and I'm all about performance and wanting to go fast, and then Snelly's a bit more of how's it put together, what can we improve on, like looking at the build of the Canopy as well. So it's nice having both sides.
So yeah, pretty much been doing that for kind of the last 3 years really.
Yeah. So that was how you started. I actually didn't, the way I came to Aerosports to do testing and to do a little bit of video editing. And basically, I had done a couple of little edits for Aerosports, just small things, nothing big. And Chris Brook, the head test jumper at the time, obviously has to be a Chris, just asked if I wanted to come and hang out for the summer, do some test jumps, make some videos and all that sort of jazz. I got here and I actually spoke to Attila, the manager, and he was like, oh, we're not sure about how much work there's going to be available for you. We're not sure, if it's going to be full-time and if it's going to go beyond this summer. That was the Sapphire 3 project, was that summer. It was easily the most testing I've done, even to date. We were just non-stop out of the drop zone, trying different things, jumping all the time. I got stuck with all the big Sapphires because I was the heaviest test jumper. So I think for about 3 months I didn't jump anything smaller than a 169. Obviously after competing on like 70 square foot canopies, bit of a change.
Change of pace.
Bit of a change, a lot of a change of pace. Anyway, towards the end of the summer, I was booking all my flights and making my plan to go back to Europe. And I remember Attila pulled me aside and just basically said, "You are coming back, aren't you?" And that was it. My potential part-time job, we're not sure how much work there was, went from 1 summer to 5 years. So not a bad result for me there.
There we are.
Yeah. I guess now, so we've said how long we've been jumping. We've got a little bit of paper here. The next question is, what was our scariest test jump and why? So I'll let you start off, Snelly.
I was going to say I probably don't necessarily do the scary stuff. That's probably more Stewy and Brookie. But probably one of the earlier jumps I was doing on the Anna was actually up in the Bay of Islands. I don't know if it was necessarily the canopy or just the conditions at the time, but you know that moment where you come in, you're just above the ground, and you're like, cool, there's my shadow, and then just watching half the shadow go whoop, whoop, and then back out again. yeah, it's one of those that didn't really register. Just keep doing what you're doing and land it. But yeah, it's kind of a bit of a retro. Just going, that looks scary.
Yeah, for sure. It's not till after, because it happens so quickly. You deal with it. Much like my story, I'm going to say, is like in the moment you don't really have a chance to freak out or whatever. It's like if you've ever had a cutaway, you don't look at the cutaway and start going, "This is scary. I'm freaking out." You do, well, you hope that you don't do that. But for most of us, we just go into autopilot, and that's why we always do our handle checks and things like that. So we just react, and then it's not till afterwards you're on the ground and you're like, "That was scary," or that could have been bad. So yeah. Just to say, for anyone watching, if you've got any questions about R&D, like I said, what we're working on, pop them in the comments, and we're going to prioritise anything you guys ask as we go through our questions. So what was my scariest jump? It was, was it 2 years ago now? Bloody time flies when you're in a global pandemic. I was jumping Petra 2, and the way it works when we test jump a canopy for the very first time, or if we've, say, put a brand new line set on it, we'll do a high hop and pop, an altitude hop and pop, and we will then go through the stability checks, make sure that the canopy is flying safely, it can flare well, and it's not collapsing or any of that sort of fun stuff. So I did all of the control checks on this Petra 2.23 reoccurring, and basically the canopy itself, it wasn't the first jump on the actual canopy, but it was the first jump on this particular line set. So I did the jump, and up at altitude I was flying around and there was nothing really wrong. It felt stable. I did some turns, I did some harness turns, I gave a little bit of rears, a little bit of fronts, a little bit of brakes, and went through a full practice landing up top, and it was all good. It wasn't until I got a little bit lower, when I was at a height that wasn't really safe to cut away from, I started going through some thermal turbulence. It was a really hot day. Anyway, the canopy just kind of buffed a bit, and I was like, okay, no, I'm not going to do a big turn on this. I'm not going to do a high performance turn. I'm just going to do a nice solid pattern and just do a straight in and keep the wing, level basically, to avoid any tucking or any collapsing. I was coming down on my base leg, and I was around 1,000 feet, and the canopy just did a little flick on one of the wingtips. I was like, oh, and before I had a chance to think, the canopy just fully collapsed, and I'm probably at like 900 feet. And like Snelly was saying, you just, you don't really have time to get scared. It's not till afterwards. So I reacted. I went to toggles. I put some pressure. I got the canopy flying straight again. I turned onto my finals, and then I had a little sit-down landing. No, it wasn't hard or anything. It was like the thing with landing a 66 prototype is that they don't really like just landing on toggles. They like speed, As to anything like small cross-brace canopies, they like a lot of speed. So straight in's not ideal. Anyway, landed, uneventful, and then it wasn't until afterwards that I kind of thought that was terrifying. That could have been really bad. If that thing had fully collapsed and shut down, I was at 1,000 feet, 900 feet. I would have just plummeted into the ground. So, it wasn't an ideal situation, but you deal with it, and that's where you would rely on your experience as well for these kinds of jumps. I would say though about the scariest jump, I'm not sure how it is for you. I don't jump scared. Like, I'm nervous when it's a new prototype. I'm nervous, I'm excited, and I really like that feeling personally. But I don't jump out. If I'm scared of a parachute, then I shouldn't be jumping it. So I'm kind of like, before I jump, I'm like nervous, but I'm switched on. I'm ready to go. I trust in my ability to fly the wing. However, if I was scared, then I would go back to Julian and be like, I'm not jumping it. Because I would never jump something that I'm terrified of or scared to jump, because then my headspace is not right,
I was going to say, when we are making changes to a prototype for the next iteration, it's always small minor changes, and small and calculated changes. We don't just dive in with let's change a whole bunch of stuff all at the same time and undo any of the good work that we've done before. So.
Yeah. All right. Well, so we've got a couple of morning. Kitch, how's it going? Kitch used to do quite a lot of test jumping. Shout out to Kitch. He worked on some of the scariest stuff before my time, which was like Leia. He jumped some of the Petra prototypes, or the the pre-Petra prototypes, those ones that used to shut down, the terrifying stuff that we don't have to do now, which I'm grateful for. And yeah, so what else have we got? That's not how you spell testes. Check out the Urban Dictionary. I'm pretty sure it is. Where is my crossfire? From Alex Glock. It's a good question, mate. The parts are all behind us to make it. But on a serious note, obviously, in and out of lockdowns, our lead time right now is 38 weeks. If you are still waiting on your canopy, you haven't heard anything, definitely send an email into sales and we'll palm that problem off to them.
But yeah, I was going to say, just to add to that, why is the lead time so long? So obviously global shortage on materials is plaguing the entire skydiving industry, not just us. Us being much further away than a lot of other manufacturers also isn't helping. But I think there's also, like, we're getting a lot of feedback from drop zones. There's actually a huge increase in the amount of people learning to skydive. I know New Zealand sports scene's definitely picked up a lot over the last 2 years. So there's actually just a lot more people ordering canopies as well. So although we're going as fast as we can, like just the amount of orders that's coming in is definitely...
Basically, we're just too damn popular. So sorry about that. No, it is an issue, and we are working hard to improve those times as well. So definitely one of our New Year's resolutions. So I've got a question here from Alexi. Is there any XRW or harness trim coming for the Petra, or are we working on anything for the Mutant? I have a Mutant here, which I've had for a couple of years now, and obviously COVID, the plan we had a plan to start working on a Petra trim and potentially a specific canopy for it. That's taken a bit of a back seat now. There is probably realistically the first thing that we would work on, not that we're working on it yet, would be a line trim for Petra for it. But right now we just don't have the time, and it is such a niche product that we kind of need to prioritize our more mainstream canopies. It sounds a little boring because I would love to work on it, and that was the plan a couple of years ago. But yeah, definitely down the track. It's something Julian is excited about, and obviously myself too, having a Mutant here. I want to try new things on it. So, watch this space, I guess. Cool. What type of canopies do we test jump? Well, you can go through what you've worked on. And
I was going to say pretty much anything from kind of larger student canopies. Obviously, we all get the privilege of jumping that 280 square foot whopper that needs to be jumped. But I kind of draw the line in the sand somewhere around the kind of 79 territory. I can jump layers. I do some work on the layers, but it's mainly kind of the Anna JFX2 esque products is about my comfort level and skill level, especially when it comes to testing. I'll leave all the Petra stuff to Stewy.
Yeah, which means I just jump anything. So I'm the jackass who jumps the tiny little Petras and that sort of stuff, which is all good. Currently now at Aerosports, I think I'm the only one who can actually take those for their first jumps before we sign off on them. But that being said, I think when people think about test jumping, they think about tiny little prototypes all the time, which, sometimes is the case. But also, we test, we've got a 210 student prototype that we're going to be trying out that Snelly needs to jump, and I'll also jump. So we jump a range. I'll jump anything from a student canopy to a tiny little Petra prototype or something around that, that sort of area.
Yeah, we don't necessarily just focus on one size range or product type. We like to mix it up. It's good to get everybody's feedback on the Testie team to give feedback on all of the canopy types.
For sure. And it's not like we don't want just one person jumping one style of canopy. We need to get a range of feedback. So we've got a couple of Snelly and I are the only sort of full-time testies, as it were, but we have a couple other people that we can get. Hayden's still here, and we're going to lean on him a little bit, especially for the wingsuit stuff. He's a really good resource to have. Hayden Galvin, if you don't know who he is, look him up. Wingsuit 5D. He's getting back into coaching. How good. So yeah, and I think as well as I said at the start, when I was jumping Sapphire 3, I was jumping only the big ones when we were doing that project. I was kind of like, But now I don't really mind. I just like jumping. So if I'm jumping a 210 student, it's relaxing. It's, you know, it's low stress. It's all good. If I'm jumping a brand new prototype Petra or, you know, P2 or whatever number we're up to at the time, awesome. You know, like you get that rush. It's enjoyable to see what the next evolution might be. But like I said, it's, you know, I appreciate the big ones as well.
I was going to say, on that note, when we feel a bit more comfortable with the canopy, we're doing the terminal openings and stuff, it's always good to go for a home with your mates and then do a bit of business on the back end and the canopy canopy stuff.
For sure.
Yeah, you can start out with a nice angle jump, it's always good fun.
We'll go through this one real quick. Do we use any specific skydiving gear for test jumping? We've started recording data with devices like fly sites, and your phone actually is pretty handy for it if you've got a newer phone, for things like G-forces, accelerometers and that sort of stuff. So we're getting more information and starting to understand the canopies more and more technically, because the technology's there. It's been there for a while, but we're really starting to utilize it now. We have what's called a dick cam. You can explain that.
I was going to say, it's exactly what it sounds like. It's basically a belly mount cam with like a stick coming off it that we mount a GoPro facing straight up, which we use to film our openings.
Yeah. If you ever see any photos from, especially not so much right now, but
Straight up, you've noticed.
yeah, you jump out and the silhouette of you is just with this big raging camera. We do have a tertiary rig as well that which is more or less ready to go, but the plan was to start working with that a couple of years ago. Obviously, we're all affected by the same situation, so that was put on a little bit of a hold.
I was going to say, occasionally we use comms.
Comms, we have some comms. Super handy for when I'm doing the camera work on it, because then I can talk to people to get them, you know, the way I want the shot to look.
Herding cats.
Herding cats, basically. A little bit more advanced. All right, what do we look for when so you guys get a canopy? It's not just been jumped a couple of times. It's obviously gone through quite a bit of a process. So what do we look for, Snelly? You can do this one.
I don't know about that, but I was going to say, when we're physically actually like out there jumping the canopies, like a lot of time is spent looking up. When we're observing the canopies a lot, we actually tend to just try and do a single pass with just the testes for a hop and pop. That way we're not having to worry too much about traffic. But basically looking up, me personally, I'm probably looking more from a production aspect, like is the canopy put together, is there any creases anywhere, is there anything that's flapping that it shouldn't. Obviously we're putting control inputs in, making sure that we're not getting any shake. So a lot of it for me is about the look and the feel of the canopy.
So I guess from a safety and a stability stance, we get out, we have a range of control checks we do, ranging from obviously toggles, rears, fronts and harness, and then once we do have the option when we jump, if we're not happy with it, then you can obviously cut it away, but where we're at right now, we're kind of, the technology we use, we're pretty confident. I wouldn't say 100% confident, but we're damn near close that the wing's going to fly. It's just, is it going to fly the way we want it? So the first jump is just about making sure it's safe to land. The second jump might be the same, and then from there we might start honing in on, we'll start pushing the canopy to see if we can collapse it. You heard that right. Our job is to also try and collapse the wing, because if we can collapse it, it means you can collapse it, which means we need to work on something. And then from there, depending on what we're focusing on, we'll start focusing on the flare, maybe the openings, usually is a big one. And then obviously, how it lands, what does it have oversteer, understeer or anything like that, and how the harness feels. So we work our way through, being cautious at the start and then pushing, and then once we've got an overall feel for the canopy, we really start honing on the things we want to improve. And we only work on one thing at a time. Is kind of the golden rule, because if we try changing a lot, we don't know what's working. So if we're working on openings, maybe we change the slider. That's all we'll do for that jump, or maybe we change the brake set. Cool. There's a couple more people here. So like I said before, if you have any questions, like what we're working on specifically, what's next, why aren't we working on something, feel free to chuck a comment in and we will do our best to avoid the answer. No, we'll answer it. What's next? What do we look for when we're testing? What is the process for deciding what works and what doesn't?
So I think I was going to say you pretty much
touched on that.
Touched on that one. Just change one thing at a time. We'll take
Yeah.
it back. As well as us reviewing the footage at the end of the jump-in day, we upload those videos, make them available to Julian. He also puts his science eyes on those videos, has a look for anything that maybe he wants to improve on or change, or something maybe he picks up that we didn't see or feel while doing the jump. So it's very much analysis at the end of the day situation. And then from that we'll pencil in all of the things that we noticed, all of the notes, and then we'll pick, okay, this is the one thing that we want to improve on. What is it we can do to improve that? Like I say, change the brake setting, change the slider, make that change probably the next day, and then try and get out. And we try and do these jumps as consecutively as possible, because sometimes it's very much on the feel of how it is. So you want to try and stay current on the changes that you're making on a prototype, rather than jump it, make a change, don't jump it for a long time, that kind of stuff.
And then, do we ever give up on a prototype? Very rarely. Usually we can make modifications to something if it's not working. So a good example would be, it's generally on the more high performance stuff, because things can obviously, if something's slightly out, then it can affect the canopy quite a lot. So we do have a couple of canopies that now have been retired to that big farm up north, as it were, the graveyard. And they have had 2 jumps on them, because we jumped them and then maybe we realised there was something wrong in the actual build of the canopy. Something was slightly out, which has thrown the whole canopy out. Or, maybe it's just a death trap and we don't want to jump it. So
I was going to say, or it comes back to that whole do 2 jumps on it and then we go back and say, nah. And then we can make changes to that. But there are sometimes we've tried things and instantly we're like, that doesn't work. Like I said, very rare. We can usually modify a canopy to then improve it and then retest it. I guess one of the good reasons why, or one of the main reasons after we've jumped the canopy a lot, why it would then be retired, is because it's been superseded, or the modifications that we want to do to that canopy involve rebuilding the 4 or 5 cells or whatever. In that case, we'd start again. So that's the main reason a canopy would get scrapped, is because we've simply outdone ourselves already and we've made improvements, or Julian's come up with a design that's an improvement on what he's made, and then we'll go with that. Yeah, sums it up.
Pretty much. Right, you can do this one. Typical R&D. Oh, wait a minute. We've got a couple of questions. Deanne, do you have somebody on the ground looking in case you get rid of a canopy? We do not. Well, we do. It's a drop zone, so
everyone likes to point it out.
Everyone likes to watch, yeah. So we jump out at Skydive Auckland, and just like I would expect most drop zones around the world, they have someone watching canopies and keeping an eye on the flight patterns and making sure there's no scenarios.
They're actually really good. They have somebody from the office out, and once the loads out the aircraft, they'll actually have somebody counting canopies and looking for cutaways, not necessarily just for us, but the entire load in general, which is good.
Yeah.
There's another question.
Oh yeah, there was. So sorry. Any change and improvements to the awesome Crossfire coming up? I'm surprised this question didn't pop up earlier, to be honest. I thought that's all we would have been talking about, this and Anna and bloody hell's Anna. I don't know. It's been a few years in the making. So we do have a couple of canopies that have had some modifications to them. There's
based on the Crossfire
platform. Based on the Crossfire 3 platform, which obviously we were jumping a little bit last year, and then New Zealand went into what ended up being like a 3-month lockdown. So basically awesome. So that kind of got paused. However, we are ramping up our R&D again. So there might be a couple of little teasers coming out, but we are definitely, the Crossfire 3 and that range of canopy is one that I would say we're looking to work on soon, and as we've already started working on it, work on more with the current prototypes we have.
Yeah.
Yeah. Do you agree? I didn't put
Yeah,
my.
yeah.
I'm not going to get in trouble for saying
I was
that.
going to say, I wouldn't say it's a direct successor from the Crossfire 3, but yeah, definitely we're looking at prototypes within that kind of skill level canopy.
Any plans for an LPV 9 cell?
Like a low pack volume.
Low pack volume
I'm
9 cell.
assuming.
Yes, I'm going to assume that's what it is.
Nothing currently in the works. We've got the Kraken in a low pack volume option, but we've not really had too much noise or requests for a low pack volume 9 cell.
Yeah.
In particular. Never say never, but it's not really something we've been asked about.
I wouldn't say. I'd like personally, I wouldn't say there's a real need on the market for it, in my opinion, because if you need a low pack volume 9 cell, which you want higher performance out of, you'd probably be best upsizing so that you also have a reserve that's safe to land if you need to cut that away.
Yeah.
I know it's cool to have a tiny rig, but sometimes it's just not practical. Unless there's another reason. Maybe there is. If there's another reason for that, let me know, because I'm curious.
Yeah.
I guess that leads on to a lot of what we do. We listen to what you guys want, where the gaps in the market are, what we haven't updated or refreshed for a while, or what could do with just a whole new canopy and we need a redesign. So we listen and look at what you guys want, and hopefully you guys feel that. Obviously sometimes we just do fun shit for the sake of it, but that's what we're about. Like, did we need to make a full sail layer? No, we didn't. Was it awesome? Yeah, it was fucking sweet. So
100 lucky people.
yeah,
50 lucky
50
people.
lucky people. Maybe more if more people buy them, if more people sign up to the petition. Yeah. Cool. Any plans to make a reserve canopy? Leave that one to you.
The idea's always been bounced around. Obviously, with anything that's regulated and TSO'd, there's a lot more production elements that we'd need to look at. So it's definitely been talked about. There's not any prototypes made up for such a project. But again, it's one of those things where, as a canopy manufacturer, you want to kind of definitely cover all bases. So maybe in the future.
It would be nice, for sponsored athletes, I guess, to be like sponsored by Eurosports. And I've been at a few swoop comps, sponsored by Eurosports. It's awesome. What's in your reserve? So it's definitely something we want to be like an overall encompassing company, so that you can get everything you need from us, canopy wise. But yeah, there's a lot of work that goes into not just actually making the reserve is pretty simple, but getting it TSO'd and approved, that's where the work comes in.
Yeah.
So
it's a lot of obviously design, paperwork, drop testing, all of those things, which, to be honest, in New Zealand we probably don't have the facilities to go drop testing a reserve, so we'd probably have to
go for a road trip.
Yeah.
Good.
Don't
Plane
get me
trip.
wrong.
I'll be keen. Let's do it. I'll throw some shit out of a plane and explode it. That'd be sweet. All right, we might skip a. Do we want to go into the typical R&D cycle?
I feel like we've covered a lot
We've
of that.
covered that, yeah. Do we help with designing of a prototype? I would say yes, in a way. We don't actually. So the initial design is Julian, so we influence it for sure. So the initial design is Julian. He comes up with an idea. I'm not really a part of this, and you're more into it because you then start looking at how we can build it.
Yeah, so I was going to say, as well as on a jump front, there's definitely design influences come from, is it physically practical to make that? Some of the designs that come through are so beautifully made in CAD, but don't always translate to, I could physically take these panels, put them together and achieve what I'm looking at in the picture. So even before we start jumping, we're bolting things together, testing seam constructions or panel construction. So there's actually quite a heavy influence on the designing at the beginning, especially. And then once we get to the jumping phase, then obviously feedback from the jumper, especially like a real easy one is we need to do something that opens too hard. Is quite a common one for us to work on, and although we can do CFD and we can put a canopy in a virtual wind tunnel, and we're like, yep,
Yeah.
sweet. You have got no idea how it's going to open until you jump it.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
There's a lot of things that, like, design is amazing, but there's definitely elements that you can't do without testing it. So.
Yeah. And I get actually do we help design? We influence it, but then it's not just myself, Chris and Julian. It's the ladies behind us as well. So they've been sewing for a lot. So Snelly might go to them with, we need to make this, and then they might have a couple of ideas. So it's a whole, it's a big team that helps, and they, without their knowledge as well of how to put the canopy together, you know, it might make a prototype not cost effective to make or just impossible to make. So it's a big team effort from sort of obviously the bulk of the design is Julian, and then we all influence it throughout the process until, you know, we have something that we're ready for beta testing and then finally released.
Yeah.
What was your favourite? Have we got a question? All right, he plans. All right. Okay, what about the Anna? Knew that one was going to come up. Any release day? Any problems to solve? So with the Anna, well, I guess you could say we've been using it. It's been slow going, you know. It's obviously we want to jump as much as possible and make big leaps and bounds, but the Anna has been small incremental improvements. Quite a few different iterations. We're up to, I think right now the version we have is like blue, but it's like the actual build of the canopy. This doesn't include any line set changes or anything like that. Just the structure of the canopy. It's the 4th version of it now. That doesn't include, upwards of 50 trim changes and that through the whole process. So whatever iteration that is, it's slow going.
I was going to say, and I think one of the main, it's not necessarily a problem to solve, but the hardest part is tuning the canopy to sit in the right kind of part on the scale of canopy progression. So obviously we've got a Petra layer, which is on the higher end. And then we've got the JFX2, which is a great kind of platform to get onto a cross brace canopy.
Yeah.
But to find something that fits really, really nicely in between the JFX2 and the layer is kind of what we're going for with the Anna. So like early on in the piece, built the first Annas, and it was basically, this is as high performance as the layer. So when we were jumping it, it's like, okay, so now we need to dial it back. And when you're trying to dial back the performance on a canopy, generally it creates other issues, be it opening or heavy rears or like just by trying to tweak it. And then obviously you could go the other way and end up with a canopy that's less performing than a JFX2. So it's not necessarily, the build is the problem. It's tuning it to sit in the right kind of.
Yeah. So right now, and the thing about working on Anna as well, the things we learn on, and for any prototype, things we learn on a specific prototype, we can then use on other canopies. So we're learning a lot about openings right now, how we can basically modify and adjust them. Through doing things that aren't as conventional, which is the conventional things for openings are generally brake set, slider change, slider size, so change the slider, and then the next one would be a trim change to the canopy. So we're starting to think a little bit more outside the box. That's all I'll say. But right now, I guess where Anna's at, it flies awesome. It's the level of performance is good. We love the way it lands, but there is still a bit of work to do with tweaking and refining openings and a couple other small things. So it's like the dragons out of Game of Thrones, you know, like there was a few seasons there. It's coming. It is definitely coming, but it's just going to take a minute.
And I think there was an ask on a release date. Sorry, no current release date for that one.
When is the Icarus Tandem 2 coming to life?
I mean,
there is a design in the works, but from design to actual prototype can take some time, just because we have obviously the Anna project that we're focusing on, as well as after that some tweaks to the Crossfire 3 and potentially another canopy, potentially. So it's definitely on the radar. It's not at the forefront right now,
I was
though.
going to say, I think I've definitely seen new tandem on the roadmap.
Yeah.
But another thing with the tandem project as well, Obviously, it's been a while since we've made a new tandem. One of the big considerations in that is probably the length of time it's going to take to test that. Obviously, with a sport canopy, we only need one test jumper. We go out, we test that canopy. It's going to experienced kind of sport jumpers. With tandems, obviously, it's going to be involving customers, like paying customers and drop zones. So there's a lot more kind of considerations to take in that, and obviously doing the test jumping requires either a big heavy weight or trying to find some mug to get on the front when we're going for a test jump. So.
Which would be another testy. So it'd be a pair of testes falling through the sky. How good.
I also don't have a tandem rate.
Yeah, don't need one for this actually. Oh no, we would, another one from Alexi. Cross brace tandem. No. Probably not. Easy. But you never know.
I was going to say, like, we had the
TFX,
TFX. But that was kind of like a bit of a fun thing to do at the time. It's not really been practical for us to make that as a product. And obviously, as with any canopy, if it gets in the wrong hands of the wrong skill level tandem master, bad things could happen.
Yeah, because everyone, you can become a tandem master nowadays at 30 jumps. I don't know, but that doesn't mean that person, has the right to fly a 300 Icarus tandem, or it's the same thing. We still have to progress. So any mug can get their hands on something like that. Shit could go wrong. Favorite R&D project?
It's always the Anna.
Always the Anna. Do you know why? Because it's the gift that keeps on giving, because it never ends.
Yeah.
Oh, how good. No, for what reason?
Probably, like I say, it's probably on the kind of pushing my skill limit. So as well as getting to do test jumping, it's also progressing my canopy piloting. Probably the most out of the canopies that I'm jumping.
It's fun. It's a fun one too, because it's not. None of them are like easy, but some of them some of them are easy because you make the design, like the Crossfire 3 when that was redesigned. Although it shares the same name, Crossfire, as the Crossfire 2, it was a completely redesigned canopy, and it pretty much just worked. Openings wise, the flight characteristics, we were very happy with it very quickly. That canopy and that project was my favourite. Fun to fly. Had heaps of fun, but also when we did the release video for it, which is the best part of it's one of the best parts of the project, we just did a road trip of the South Island, and it was skydiving, driving around, we're very lucky, New Zealand's beautiful, driving around a beautiful country, and hanging out with mates, drinking beers, doing flocking jumps in beautiful places. That for me was skydiving sort of
came
encapsulated.
In about this much too late.
Yeah, you were just a little bit off, but it was awesome. Yeah, a lot of fun. Lastly, why are all the testes called Chris now? Well, that was just by chance. I was the last. No, you were the last one. Yeah. Chris Brook, who used to work for us, he's off living in the Wops in a tiny home. Love you, Chris. Good job, mate. So he was obviously he was the senior test jumper when I started. There was a couple others who weren't called Chris, but as it stands right now, we're the only full-time testes, but we do have other testes.
Who we're basically waiting for them to
change their name
by default before they can actually.
We're just waiting on Hayden Galvin to become Chris Galvin, and then he's good to go. He's signed off to test jump anything
last
he
thing
wants.
On the list.
Yeah. And testes isn't spelt wrong. I've already covered this. Just go check out the Urban Dictionary. Yeah, that's pretty much it, guys.
That's probably enough of us waffling.
I think that's enough of us waffling. If you're one of the original people who stayed on for the whole 40 minutes,
kudos.
Good on you. I mean, either you don't have a job or your boss isn't watching you right now, so not bad. That's for New Zealand time, by the way. So it's 10:40 in the morning. Anyway, thank you for joining us. Thank you for listening to us ramble.
Appreciate it.
Thank you for your questions. If you do have more questions, you can always message us privately, or just chuck a comment up on a post, and we always do our best to answer those as well. If there's anything you forgot to answer, I'm going to be going out test jumping tomorrow. Might be jumping an Anna, how good. And I'll do a little IG, Instagram sort of question day while I'm out there. So tune in for that if you're going to be on Instagram and you've got a couple questions that come to you tomorrow, I guess. apart from that, thank you very much for joining. Thanks for listening to us waffle on, and you can have the last words, mate. Anything?
Thanks.
Thanks. How good. See you guys.
Cheers.
Still going.